tools. It's fantastic. All right. So the question that we have today is, how do you fix a drop? If you were the management at Facebook and there is a drop of 10% to 15% in usage of Facebook groups, how would you fix it? Okay. And as usual, the way I think we, should start this question is by talking about how to structure, first of all, and then give a shot to somebody that wants to try it out. Okay. So let's discuss the structure. I give my thoughts and would love to hear your thoughts on that. So I would start this question by, first of all, ask clarifying questions. Obviously, this question is really kind of like open. There are some assumptions that one can make. So I would ask clarifying questions first to understand really what usage means, first of all. Then second, I would identify the components or issues that could be causing that problem. Once I identify those possible components or issues, then I will form some hypothesis. And then I would tell how I would test those hypotheses. Okay. Usually this is going to be a back and forth conversation between interviewers, so it's not as a monologue, but more or less the structure, right? It's not cast in stone. Input. Any other thoughts on the structure?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Do we look at how do we prevent it going forward also to conclude it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Romeo?
How do we prevent it from happening in the future?
How would you prevent it from happening in the future? That's a good one. Yeah, I would add that too. Okay. Prevent it from happening. Okay. So it seems kind of the structure straightforward. And I'm going to play the interviewer if one of you wants to play the interviewee. Who dares? I always applaud the person that wants to dare.
I don't mind doing it, but it's my first time attending this call, so.
Yeah, of course, Bijan. This is we're all gentle people.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so Bijan, so you are coming into the interview room, and it's like, welcome, Bijan, welcome to Facebook. We're excited to have you here. And to start off, I would like to ask you a question that actually we're having problems with. We're seeing a 10% to 15% drop in usage of Facebook groups. And I would like to ask you, how would you identify and solve this problem?
Okay. So I think, as you mentioned, the first question that I would try to get some clarity on is what is the definition? So am I asking you questions? Is that correct? Like I'm being...
You can play whichever way, but usually what we do is we pretend you're in the real room.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so you are on stage.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, the first question I would ask is, can you elaborate what you mean by usage so that I can get a better understanding of basically what we mean by usage and what we're really looking at.
Sure. So what we've seen is that the engagement of people in groups has declined by 10 to 15%.
Okay. So I would also ask for some clarity on what you mean by engagement, and basically what metrics are you looking at to determine that the engagement has dropped off?
Okay. So we are looking at basically the number of postings, number of sharings, numbers of replies to posts on the Facebook, anything that can detect whether the members in a group are actually being active.
Right.
And for that, there are several metrics, and all those metrics are going down.
Okay. Okay, that's fair. So So I think now the next step for me would be to brainstorm on the potential causes of the drop in engagement. Is that fair?
That's exactly what we're asking you.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
I can think of a couple reasons. One would be that the number of times that people see a Facebook group posting on their newsfeed come down.
Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I think somebody, Bijan, 1 second. I think somebody has in the background some noise. Could you turn off the mic? I think maybe Chandan. Hey, Chandan. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Chandan. All right.
Okay.
Sorry, Bijan.
Yeah, no problem. So I would say one reason could be that the number of times that a Facebook group posting is viewed has come down because there has been some change, let's say, in the algorithm that the news feed has is based on which deciding what content to present to the user. I would say that could be one reason.
Wait. Let's stop right there. So just to make sure we are on the same page. So we're talking here about engagement, right? So the posting in a group, usually the post is not done algorithmically, but it's done by the creator of the group or by people posting on the replies or just people posting their own post. So what do you mean by algorithm?
So what I mean is, so there are two parts. One part is the number of posts that, so it could be that the number of times that people submit things, so the number of times that the user of a group sees a message about a particular group or for a particular posting has come down. So let's say before, if someone posted something on Facebook group, it would appear on people's news feeds 100 times, but now it appears less frequently, and it's being prioritized less often compared to other content.
So you're saying that a possible cause could be that the group posts are not being viewed widely as before.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's one cause that I can think about. The other cause that I could think about would be I'm thinking.
No, keep thinking.
I can get people want to help, feel free to jump in.
All right, so let's make this a group effort. How about that? So just to begin, let me give you a little bit of feedback, Bijan.
Yeah.
And would love to also hear some other people's feedback on for Bijan, just for the first part. I think, Bijan, you went straight to thinking about causes, when I think there's an opportunity to actually clarify even more, to narrow the scope of where the problem could be. For example, I would have asked, is this something that just happened? It was a blip, an event, or is it something that has happened already regularly and is progressively going down?
Okay. That
will tell you whether this was a one-time thing or whether in fact it's a real problem and it has progressed. And since when has it progressed? When has it been noticeable? Right? Because if it's one event, it could be something technical, if it's progressively, then it has to do more, I would say, on usage and perhaps on experience. Okay.
Right.
So I would ask those questions. I would also ask whether this is a worldwide problem or if it's a regional problem. Okay. So, and the reasons is because, it could be, I don't know, but it could be a reason. Something political happened. Maybe the government of Singapore decides not to allow their people to use Facebook or something like that.
Okay.
So that's one thing. Yeah, and any other, so that's what I was thinking. Any other questions that people may have to narrow it down?
Yeah, things like platform, what is it on mobile? Is it on web? Is it seasonal? Do you see that happen every year? At the same time, maybe it's holidays or something. And then, what version is it impacting? Like, things like that.
What? I'm sorry, what was that, Ramil, the last one?
Version? Like what version?
What version?
Yeah. Like,
what do you mean by version?
So if it was a mobile app, then you could start seeing from what version has this. Is it?
From what version? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I would also check if any other Facebook features have seen similar declines, like maybe the newsfeed usage is also low. I'm trying to find out correlations with the other metrics, or at least the usage of the other features.
Metrics?
Hello? Yeah,
yeah,
I'm just saying
correlation with other features of Facebook. Okay.
Yeah, other features
Got
of
it.
Facebook.
That's a very
yeah.
What comes to mind when you think about that, Himanshu? What kinds of situations?
Yeah, I mean, I think what the kind of situations could be, well, maybe this is a bug that is affecting multiple things, or maybe there is a chain whereby you can't even get to groups because the newsfeed link that takes you to groups is not working. So then you can start making correlations like, okay, it's kind of like a chain of things that is broken, and it's not just one groups which is facing this problem. Other things you can find out from such a question is like, hey, is it like a site level issue, or is it a feature level issue? So you can do those kind of analysis.
Okay. Very good. Any other inputs on this, on asking more clarifying questions?
One thing would be, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I would also like to know if there is a change around like the content creation in the groups that is happening versus like the content consumption. If we are seeing any pattern over there from what has already been historically.
Not sure. What? Give me an example of what you mean.
Basically, if there were like say 100,000 posts being created on groups every day, has that number actually changed, or is only the consumption number changed? That number of posts that people are interacting with, commenting, or liking on. So, is there a change in?
So you're saying
creation side, or both?
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I would even start.
Also regional changes, right? Is it impacting Europe? Is it impacting North America? Is it a certain section of users? Like which geographic region? Maybe there's a wire or cable that got disconnected somewhere, or maybe there is a outage or something to a certain specific set of servers. I mean, I don't know if regionals make more sense or not.
What else?
Yeah, I think then we should probably start asking questions like, so I'll give you an example. Like at Amazon, there was a lot of traffic through bots, and they had made changes so that bot traffic would not affect the site. So maybe this is a good change, whereby the traffic was overinflated in the past, but now because of a recent change whereby we are trying to bring down something, this also got impacted in a good way. So I think maybe we should explore that also. Like, is this a positive change?
I think that on that note, that's an interesting thought, right? To me, it would be positive if you have another feature that Facebook just launched, and that is being very successful and kind of competes with Facebook groups, but it's selling more advertisements, right? It's selling more ads.
Yeah.
From that perspective, that would be sort of like a good outcome, right? Because then you're moving people from there to the new feature that is more aggressive.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So the clarifying question could be, was there a change made in the recent past, like a new feature launch or a new thing that was launched that is taking traffic away on a temporary basis, or maybe this is a long-term trend. I think also, trying to understand like groups, like there are two types of users here. One who go and create the groups, curate them, and create the posts and everything, and then there are people who are visiting. So trying to understand like which traffic from which big segment has gone down. I think that might give a clue.
Well, I think when they're talking about engagement, what is the ratio? I think it's 10 to 1, like, or maybe even more. Like for one creator, there are like maybe 100 listeners or something like that, or 100 passive repliers. So I think that clearly this is talking more about the people that respond, right?
Yeah.
But
No,
I mean,
right.
you can always throw that question there, right?
Yeah,
but that would be my answer.
Yeah, but I understand your logic. Yeah.
Well, very good inputs. Anybody else has any other clarifying questions that I would ask to ask?
So I missed the first part of this this chat, but I think another clarifying question is to ask if this is a seasonal thing. Is it during a
Yeah,
certain,
they already did.
They did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Regional, to ask if it's only happening in the US. Is it happening in bigger cities?
Right.
Is there a power cut consistently in some region, or Wi-Fi problems and all those things? I think we discussed those, I guess.
Yeah, all very good points. So that really makes you narrow down, whether this is really an issue that is consistent or it's just one-off. So
I guess age groups as well, or a kind of user maybe that's going down. Maybe it's students who are busy with exams, midterms. Yeah, so I think just to identify the kind of user.
I would also add to understanding the traffic pattern across other features of Facebook. So if the traffic pattern has kind of diminished across other Facebook features, even such as posting, or if there are issues even to log into the site, that may drop. So
yeah, I think he mentioned related to that too. That's a good point, right? To see if there's a correlation with other features. Great, all very good points. Okay, so let's say that, as an interviewer, I tell you, you know what, this is something that's been consistent across worldwide with Facebook groups. It has come down for the last 2 months, or the last month, excuse me. Or let's say just the last 2 weeks, it has come down significantly, right? So we're worried about it. We know that it's not a technical issue. Everything is working. It's not relegated to a specific region. It's not seasonal. It's just progressively happening, starting 2 weeks ago. So continue. Who wants to jump in and keep on answering this question? Keep on analyzing it. Because now is the stage of like,
Yeah, so Malena, what are you proposing? I didn't hear you. Can you?
Yeah, so right now, so I basically discarded some of these possible causes, right? Yep. So I basically said this has nothing to do with region, has nothing to do with a technical problem, right? Yep. And it's happening for the last 2 weeks. What are your thoughts? Can you continue doing this analysis? Right?
Yeah, and I'm assuming like every other question that we had, the answer is also no. Like this is only for this feature. It's not for any other feature. It's not on the mobile versus desktop. Like, are you saying no to those as well? Okay,
yeah,
cool,
exactly.
Cool.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Are you also saying no to the fact that there was no change made in the current workflow, or like the way a user interacts?
Not. Okay. So I'm saying there's no change in workflow, not to all the other questions. There's no correlation between other features, traffic has gone down. Okay. I'm gonna jump into what I thought, okay? So we have looked at internal issues already, right? So I would say, look, all these issues that I've looked at are possible internal issues. Let me move on to possible external issues.
Yes.
Okay.
Makes sense.
And so external possibilities here, obviously competitors. So maybe what is happening is that across the social network competitors that are out there, they have come up with either a new Facebook, a new group feature, or if they already have some kind of group feature, maybe they have added an additional thing to it that is making people leave the Facebook group and go to the ones. That would be my other hypothesis.
I would also say like there could be a negative PR impact from something.
Or a geopolitical change, right? So as you said, some president said we cannot use groups anymore or something like that, right? So.
Yeah, I see. Right. But Himanshu, you said also PR?
Yeah. So, I mean, for example, like Facebook had a lot of issues recently with fake news and Russia and all those things. So maybe there's some news article or some big, you're right. I mean, it could be a government stance that is being taken against Facebook that is causing people to be reluctant to use the groups feature. Or maybe there's been a data hack or a potential data hack story that's out, which says, well, all the data on Facebook groups has been leaked to some hackers and they're misusing and the usage has really been hit, even though it is not a real issue. You know what I mean? It's more like news-driven rather than the real issue-driven.
We have competition and we have bad PR. What else?
I think there's a lot of background noise.
I'm sorry?
I think there's a lot of background noise. If people that are not speaking could put their computer on mute, I think that would be great. Their speaker, that would be great.
All right. So I guess maybe one person at a time. So we have the competition that they could be doing something, and also we have the PR thing. And before I give my answer as an interviewer, would love to hear more.
Yeah, so I want to add that there is a possibility of moving away from Facebook. WhatsApp, which is also
there's a possibility
of using WhatsApp groups rather than Facebook groups, and that could also result in the decline of the usage. So I'm comparing.
You're saying that WhatsApp is taking people from Facebook groups?
Yeah, it's a possibility. But I'd understand.
Okay.
I'd like to understand how the traffic is changing from that. So. Yeah.
So that would be in the competition bucket, right? So maybe other competitor.
I'm not sure if that is a competition because Facebook owns WhatsApp now. Right?
It's an internal competitor. It's okay. It's possible.
I see.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. If we say internal competitor.
I have a few interesting hypotheses. Like there was a lot of news around net neutrality, and what if the Verizon network or certain network is blocking or at least tethering the use of Facebook on their networks, which means that Facebook, the bandwidth that is allocated to Facebook is less than what is allocated to the rest.
But that will happen. There will be a correlation between this droppage and other features.
Yeah, and I thought about that too. So maybe the Facebook groups feature is a high bandwidth feature, or if you think about it, like I'm just making an analogy. If there is tethering on videos that you see because of the high bandwidth usage, but that's not in the usual news feed, then you would be able to decipher that, hey, something is going on for these high bandwidth.
Yeah, I would contemplate that reasoning if it were, for example, Facebook Live. But because it's Facebook groups, which doesn't really use much bandwidth, I would hear probably that reason with suspicion.
Yes. No, I think it's a fair suspicion.
So, Melina, you said that 2 weeks, we started seeing this 2 weeks before, right? And there was nothing leading to the 2 weeks prior to that where the data was spiking. So maybe Facebook did some positive campaign and then the data spiked and then slowly died down, it fizzled down. So now it is again in the downward trend. So if we rule out those kind of events, So can we ask the interviewer that do we know that if any competition launched any product 2 weeks, aligning it to 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll tell you. Okay, and I'm gonna make something up. Okay, you know what happened just like 2 weeks ago? Meetup started with this new technology where they had video on their Facebook for the groups. You know, they have video so that people can actually talk to each other through chat and video and set up video meetings and things like that. And that seems to have brought people to them, you know, from Facebook group.
So what was the question that led you to give that answer?
I'm sorry?
What was the question that made you give that answer? Like, is the question?
Oh, so
that
yeah, so
did?
Yes. So Shoban said, well, could I ask the interviewer if they know that something has happened in the competitive landscape in the last 2 years? Okay. And so, okay, right now, and I would say, yeah, actually, you know, this happened. You know, Meetup came up with a new feature, and looks like it's being very successful. You know, so that's the reason. Okay. And now the next question would be, well, how would you compete with that? What would you do if that were the case?
And you said that Meetup added a video chat capability in their software, and which Facebook would that, right?
Yeah, so in essence, they have added more capabilities so that people can actually engage with each other better, including video.
Okay, so maybe the answer is that Facebook groups previously didn't have video capabilities, and when people are posting messages, they are also trying to schedule meetings and other things, and that's why they are using video. So maybe we can integrate the Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp Messenger, and through their video service, we can also plug it into the groups, right? So that will counteract Meetups campaign, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like the group's user were looking really for something. It means that they were looking for a video capability. So that's why they're moving from Facebook to Meetup. Although both are similar platforms where people can come together, they can post messages, then schedule sync ups, meetups, those kind of things. A group of classmates or group of colleagues can come together and then work together. But the really lacking thing was the video. So that's the key thing to counterbalance right now in the short term.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would add to that. So if you are a Facebook groups user, and I mean, if I compare the WhatsApp features with Facebook groups, I would say there are some features such as what you mentioned about video feature, where at the same time, sending voice messages is also a feature that's used in other countries quite a lot. So you don't have to type anything at all. That becomes a very significant way of sending messages.
I have one more theory. So Facebook groups may have a lot of partners, you know, and maybe they lost a major partner, which was either a source of new groups or new groups getting created or a lot of traffic. And just because of, you know, something happening somewhere else in their partner network, that is causing a decline in your features traffic.
Could you give me an example?
I mean, so for example, in the news feed, and I'm taking a different example, in the news feed, Facebook has a lot of content providers, like news media outlets that provide news, you know, canned content for them. If they lose one or two of those big providers, then the readers of the news would get significantly impacted, I'm assuming. And in a similar vein, if they have partners for this groups feature, uh, then that could get impacted too. Although I can't think of what partners there might be there.
Yeah, I mean, I see that you're trying to come up with different reasons, but I think,
Yeah.
but I think that when in the interview, if you cannot come up with an example, it's not going to be a strong answer.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
It will come up more like you're trying to grasp for things. You see?
Yep. Yep.
All right. Any other ideas on how to counteract this hypothetical video feature that Meetup has come up with and compete with them?
So I don't have an idea, but I can try and see what is it that is driving people towards that. What is the underlying problem that feature is solving, and what part of Facebook can be used to address that problem? So if we cannot, I mean, I don't want to compare us with them feature by feature, but if we can achieve the same scenario or the same goal by doing something else, then we should try and advertise that more to tell people that, hey, look, if you guys use this, then we can get you similar benefit.
Yeah, so really understanding what is it that people
Correct. So what is driving people
maybe
towards that? What is it that they have that we don't, right? So
yeah.
So do we need
It may not be
do we need to ask exactly what the video capability does and how it works?
I'm sorry, Vivian.
So my question
Vivian,
was,
can you say that again?
how the video capability in Meetup works and how people are using it?
No, I don't think that the question is related to that in particular. I think it's more along the lines of really what is the problem that it's solving for them on Meetup, the video. And I think that's where the real way of thinking about a solution, comes into play. Because, for example, what I think it was Chauvin, what Chauvin said, or Durlap, I don't remember. I think Durlap, that it's important to understand really why, it may not be just because it's video, right? It may be something else, because Meetup, for example, it's different than Facebook, right? Meetup, it's people have really, sometimes they meet in physically. Usually most of those meetups, actually, people actually meet physically, and they are more niche, right? People seem to have more of a goal in mind together, whereas I think on the Facebook group it's more passive, right? It's only one person and you are putting stuff on the feed and people read them, right? Whereas in Meetup, you don't have a feed, you don't have anything like that. So it's a different context, people have a different purpose, right? And so I think those things need to be taken into consideration as a product manager, and not just say, okay, what does the video feature in Meetup does that we don't? Because that might not be what, in the entire context, why the users went to Meetup. Maybe there's a different reason.
yes.
And I don't know, I just made that up, but I think
that is absolutely right. I think we need to understand what about that new competition is driving the traffic towards them. So, and again, we don't want to hastily come up with something else, because then people will say that we are chasing taillights. So we don't want to be the ones who are chasing the competition. What we want to be the ones that are the path breakers, right? So for that, even if we lose the business in short term for a few weeks, that's all right, as long as we understand why we lost it. So then what we can do is we can come up with a couple of different strategies and say, hey, look, for this short term, great, let's have them, Meetup is great for interview preparation. That's a niche market they have. Let's not worry about it. What are our strengths? Hey, why don't we enter the local classifieds business? Why don't we enter the sell buy business? Why don't we enter grocery delivery business? Whatever, right? We create our own strengths and we create our own niche markets and drive it organically instead of trying to copy what the competition is doing.
Yeah, and actually that brings something interesting here, right? What do you guys feel? I just mentioned that, and this is an aside thing, but it would be great to hear your feedback on this. I just mentioned that Facebook has this feed, news feed, and for example, I post things on the group, right? And you guys sometimes read, sometimes don't. It's more passive. Some people sometimes post their own things, but it's more a passive thing. Now we also have the Meetup group, So what that you probably, there's nothing to read or anything like that. So from your perspective as a user, I mean, what are the things that we do on Meetup that we don't do on Facebook? Like, why are there groups on Meetup? Why are there groups on Facebook, but they are different?
I think one big difference is that on Meetup, we meet face to face as members of the Meetup group, whereas we don't have that on Facebook necessarily.
So I think both of them offer the ability to, set an event and then join it. It's just that with Meetup, you have a very clear goal in mind that if you're getting onto the group, then my perception is that there's going to be an event and I'm going to be part of it. If I have to consume content, then I have a clear group goal that if StellarPeers is posting something, I'll be on Facebook. I won't check Meetup. But when I have to check for the Tuesday session or the repeat session, I go to Meetup. So it's more of the perception of how the usage has built around it.
That's great. So just to that, I think if you want to be a Facebook group user, do you have to become a friend of that user? Is that how it works? If I'm not your friend,
No.
Okay.
No, you can become part of Facebook group and not be friends with your person. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that Facebook group is as you said, Romil, is something constant, right? And you get notified when there's something to look at. So in a way, is for the group to say, hey, I don't want to miss on something. Maybe there's some announcement or something like that, right? Meetup doesn't have that. Meetup is a specific event on a specific time, right? Yet people don't do meetups on Facebook. Why is that? Why don't people create? Why don't I go? I ask myself, why don't I go to Facebook and just create this on Facebook? Well, I think it's because, first of all, Facebook is not known for that. Second, they don't have the I think it's because people don't go to Facebook to look for groups to join in terms of niche groups, and also I don't think they have the tools that Meetup provides, or they do. I mean, I can set up events actually on Facebook, but can I? Yeah. I mean, but I don't do it because I think people are not going to see them. This is the perception. Is there any other difference besides perception?
I think the other thing is a lot of times I can hear my echo. Not anymore.
Oh, sorry.
In a group, I feel a lot of times posts tend to get lost in the volume of other posts. Whereas when there's a meetup, there's a specific meetup, the visibility is pretty high. So if I were a group admin and I had to make people part of the people who are part of my group meetup, I'd rather post that on a meetup so that the visibility is more, because there's so many other posts which are posted by other people that sometimes I'd be like, my event was not even seen by a lot of group members.
And also, I mean, now that you said that, Kanika, Meetup really is a creator's tool. It's a creator's tool mostly. And as you said, it brings attention to a specific event, right?
Right.
And whereas Facebook group is passive, right? Everything can get lost. I'm not going to get the attention because it's not that special. Question at heart is, I could probably replicate what I'm doing on Meetup on Facebook, and yet I'm not doing it.
I would say it has to do with the initial traction that Meetup was able to get. And, these kind of things are mostly like winner takes all market. Like Meetup really established itself. It was focused on this one particular problem. And for Facebook, they were just kind of like adding more and more things to their repository. And it really didn't take off because there was this awesome solution out there that people are already using. So I feel like you would see this in many other areas as well. You would see equally good products that are number 2 and number 3, but do not get traction at all because there's this one product out there just so far ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. You're saying, Meetup really was its focus on solving this problem of people creating a space for people to meet. That was, that focus. Whereas Facebook is all over the place. Right?
Yeah.
So
Facebook,
that's
Facebook Group's goal was to drive engagement for the platform, and meetups would have probably been, how do you help people? It's not so much so on engagement, but how do you have monetization of people meet and they buy tickets through it? The other point I wanted to, does that make sense, by the way?
Yeah, and I think, totally, they had totally different goals, and you're quite right. And I think that Meetup, the way they monetize, of course, is by subscription by the creators, right? That want to maintain the Meetup page.
Okay.
But it's, of course, a lot less revenue than Facebook.
So I try these answers under the theme of the mission. The mission of Facebook was to connect users in the past. Now it's about connecting communities. And I'll start with a mission statement, and then I'll say that it's for the engagement and connecting people together so they can share their posts and like. Then I'll talk about Meetup. That's how I'll bring it all under one umbrella of giving a defined.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again?
So, but the way I this answer is, these are all good suggestions, right? So Facebook had a specific goal and blah blah blah. So I'll start off by saying that initially the mission of Facebook was connecting users. So they can share their posts and blah blah blah, and then I'll say that Meetup was for a specific goal, so that it can connect people together to meet for a specific purpose. And then I'll give all of the varied answers that we all shared today.
Yeah.
I also have one more hypothesis. So if you see, Meetup is all about a physical event, or like mostly it is about people meeting physically, or even say virtually on like a hangout right now we are doing, and all the energies are around connecting people to go and meet physically. So a digital platform to help people meet in an analog world. Facebook was never trying to do that. Like Facebook wanted you through its groups or newsfeed to be on their platform virtually, like online all the time. They were never like trying to take you to the offline and then bring you back. So I think the core problem was that Facebook didn't realize that people are trying to use these platforms to maybe meet physically, to do common activities, which are not like playing video games, but more like doing hiking and cooking and painting and all these 15 different things that Meetup enables. So I feel like that was one other component too, that kind of like led to not as much of growth in Facebook's groups.
Yeah, and it goes back to the problem. I think, now that you mentioned that, Himanshu, it reminds me of how small companies that focus on niche, solutions do way better than, for example, large companies trying to actually provide a solution also for that niche.
Yes.
Right. I think it's a typical example. All right, makes sense.
I think one of the biggest thing about Facebook is that it's perceived, or you want Facebook to be a closed group, right? So, for example, like I'm in my alumni network and I'm part of that, and they will post some events once in a time. Let's say let's meet up for happy hours and all those things. So I can go there, but uh, I'm a bit hesitant to join other groups. Like, will they welcome me or not? And similarly, others might have concern, right? Whether should they welcome them, and then they will have access to all the feeds and other things. With Meetup, I think it's more open. You perceive that okay, I can go and join it. People want to meet. They have a common agenda. They want to learn something. So that's what boils down to. I think. Yeah, and also the format, right? So Facebook is more like a news feed. So people use it to update things like what happened to a group. Uh, like somebody in alumni network, they have a job or they got a new job or they had a baby, so they will post those kind of things. In meetups, it's the information is more organized as events. So hey, at next month there's an event happening. So things like that. So it's perception and formatting, I guess.
Yeah, all good answers. All good answers. Great. Well, I think we're almost at the end of the time, 7 more minutes. Does anybody have any questions? Any things that are on their mind about this question?
So I guess my question would be, so what now? Do we have to give a solution on how to increase engagement in Facebook groups at this point?
I think that for the final would be to say, you know, if I were to summarize this at the end, I would say, well, you know, I wouldn't like to jump in and immediately start copying what Meetup does, but I would like to actually first, you know, do some study as to precisely understand why is it that, you know, the people from Facebook went to Meetup, because it's important to see that video feature within the mission of the company and the context. So it's Meetup plus video and Facebook group plus video, but the real user's goal would be, we need to find out what it is. And maybe I will throw some hypotheses there by saying maybe you know what, users actually that join groups want to have a closer connection, a real connection, and Meetup, you know, by the perception that everybody has is that in fact Meetup enables that, whereas in Facebook groups it doesn't. That would be one hypothesis, but I will have to test that, right?
That's a good thought. It makes me think, like, you know, even you post your meetups on both Meetup and Facebook every week, right? How's the engagement like? Isn't it different on meetups? I'm sure it's different on meetups. More people join in through meetups than Facebook, your own Facebook group like StellarPeers. And if you were getting the same kind of engagement, you could have just gone with Facebook groups, I guess.
That's a good point, Kanika. And in fact, I get more, more funnel from Meetup than from Facebook.
Right. It's because it's an open platform for everyone to join, and I think the whole perception of closed groups is different. And I, like Himanshu was mentioning hiking. I'll give you an example. I started hiking with an open group, but when we started knowing each other, we started a subgroup on Facebook, and we no longer use Meetup. Our usage of Meetup has actually gone down now that we know each other and we are a closed group on Facebook, and we just plan our hikes within that Facebook group. So that's something to think for Meetup too. It's just about someone was mentioning Alumni Network, just because they know each other now, so they're more active on Facebook or vice versa. Yeah.
So you think it's an issue of perception?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But it's interesting. Facebook is a company that can take risks like that. They can copy a feature. They've been doing stuff like that. So they can obviously integrate with video hangouts and see if there's a change. If it's not, then they can drop it.
Yeah. I mean, they could just start it right away. That's interesting what you just said. You know, that you join a group in Meetup And once you got to know your people, then you created a group on Facebook. But your intention is not to grow that group. It's just to have a conversation between each other, correct?
It's again a hiking meetup group but on Facebook though.
But is it growing? Is it growing?
It's growing. It grows for sure. It grows as in people who join in through Meetup. If the admin of the group likes that person, then he adds him in the Facebook group. And if he doesn't, then he won't be.
I see. No, but you said though that you stopped that Meetup group and then you started a Facebook group.
Oh, no. I wasn't saying that. I'm just saying the person who was using Meetup or like the creator of the Meetup, he or she is not using that group anymore, but he started on Facebook instead because he got enough people that he knew already, and that group grew on Facebook itself.
So to me, it sounds like people, human beings, they like to have just a small group that it's big but small enough that you can get to know each other really well. And once you have your clan, you're not interested in like knowing more people.
It depends on what situation you have. Say I moved to a different city now, then I'll start using Meetup again. Create my clan. Yeah. It just depends on how you want to use your social network, I guess.
So what you're saying is that you will go through Meetup first to meet people, and then once you know them well, then you can have them on Facebook, a Facebook group.
I can do that.
That's
if it's
kind of cheating, but yeah, I mean, whatever works, right?
No, but it's interesting and to understand the psychology there, right? Because you have the perception that if you go through Meetup first, you get probably the opportunity to meet these people in person first.
Yeah.
And then you can have them as friends digitally, but not the other way around. Like you wouldn't meet them first on Facebook.
You wouldn't trust people on Facebook. I wouldn't.
So it's a trust issue. Okay.
Go ahead.
I think sometimes it boils down to the personality of the group admin. For example, I am part of 2 running groups, right? So, we both started in the Meetup. So one running group, now they have moved on to WhatsApp. So they will organize the run through WhatsApp. And other one is still using Meetup. So I asked, like, why are you using WhatsApp? So he said, I'm just lazy. It's easier to just type in and call people to use WhatsApp.
Well, that's an interesting thought. And the other thing is that, right? I mean, people move to Facebook because they can communicate right away. Yeah, I think probably that's the main issue. Okay.
Yeah,
interesting.
I definitely think of the reverse traffic as well. There's a lot of times that I don't want to use Meetup because I cannot. I can definitely post my Meetup, but maybe discussion on that. A lot of times people don't see comments on under a Meetup. Comments under Meetup, whereas the discussion that I see on Facebook, I do it more often. Yes, I do go to events on Meetups every week, but I only check my Meetup once a day versus checking Facebook group discussions multiple times a day.
Well, and that is because Meetup doesn't have a chat or a group thing.
Yeah, have a chat. They don't have a news feed or posts feature.
I mean, that's the main reason.
I think I'll throw out one more final reason, at least from my side, is the privacy issue. So everybody can see which Facebook groups I have joined. So, I mean, on Meetup, I can go and try something eclectic or something freaky or strange, and I don't get judged for which meetups I am part of, right? Because nobody actually knows which meetups I've joined. But on Facebook, I mean, you're kind of like announcing your personality and your interest by being part of a group. So I think just building on Kanika's example, what she mentioned is like, it's good if you're moving a city, if you want to try out something new, then see if it works for you, and then make it more a part of your life with the Facebook groups. I think the privacy issue may be there as well. Like what you're announcing by being associated with these groups may not be as comfortable.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Well, I hope people are not talking too bad about you associating with StellarPeers.
With StellarPeers, right? No, if you think about it, like I don't want to announce to my entire network that I'm preparing for a PM interview. Like, because on Facebook, I have people who I meet every day at work as well. So I'm just saying that at least I might have that concern.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Actually, yeah, I agree. Me too. Yes.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
you know,
we're gonna stop using your group, Melina.
no, that means that you're more competitive, guys. You know,
No,
it's like,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
man,
I'm just saying.
if I see that my employee is like preparing for interviews, like, I'm gonna increase his salary. All right. Okay, I think this was a great discussion. Well, I'll see you next week. Next week we're going to have a guest that got a job, and he's a PM, great PM. So.
Oh, who's this person?
Is the Daniel Lewis. I think some of you interview with him. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. All right, guys.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.